the political leader of the National Transformation Alliance. It's good to have you back with me here again on Tobago Updates, Mr. Griffith. It's always a pleasure to have the conversation. How are you doing this morning?
Fine, thank you. Likewise, always a pleasure to be on.
Right, excellent. And Tobago is always excited to hear about what is going on with you in the latest developments, especially where this case with the current government is concerned. Last time you came here, you were very adamant about the need for the maintenance of democracy in Trinidad and Tobago, especially where the Police Service Commission is concerned and where the TTPS is concerned. We were talking back then about the appointment of the new police commissioner, Mrs. Sheila Christopher, and you extended your congratulations to her, but you also indicated that it was extremely important for her to understand the independence of her role that is separate and apart from the government. Now, you had this ongoing case where an investigation was being conducted and a report was requested from the government, which was led by Dr. Keith Rowley, and this was in relation to the firearm registry. And this is something that you was in charge of during your time as police commissioner. And a report was requested while you were supposed to be temporarily appointed as the acting police commissioner. Tell us a bit about how that case transpired, because there are a number of persons who have not really followed it in detail and understand really and truly what it is. So we want to start off by really giving people an understanding, a deeper understanding of really what happened in this case, because there are a lot of moving parts. There were a lot of accusations. There were a lot of claims. There are a number of leaks that happened in the media that hinted to some level of misconduct on your part. So give the people a little bit of a background on how this case even transpired, where it started.
Yeah, sure. Good morning again. What is unfortunate is that there's something known as democratic dictatorship, when it is that you have a government feel that they can now take control of the police service, the defense force, the TPP's office, and if it is that you don't get what you want, you start putting pressure on them. You would have seen the pressure that went on me when I was commissioner of police, because it seemed to some that I wasn't moving fast enough to arrest political opponents. And I told them where to get off, and that is where the fallout took place. You'll notice the same thing taking place with the DPP right now. The DPP cleared certain persons politically opposed to the government in the Piarco matter. Within a few days, all of a sudden, people go on the platform and start attacking the DPP. That is what happened. That is a very dangerous precedent when it is our independent bodies are now being affected. In this situation that would have taken place, and with firearms, this government has a good, one thing they are very good at. You see that manipulation of trying to influence the public into believing lies. That's what they do. They do well. With Emailgate, you would have seen you can't have anon@mail.com. If the server is not an email authentic server and the address is not correct, then you can't forward emails, you can't receive emails, you can't send emails. But you lie so often on it and you go and hide in Parliament, you get 150,000 PNM till are dead to buy it. And that is sad. Thankfully, there are 250,000 what you call floating voters. Tobago is the perfect example, because you all decide, you all don't blindly support something that's going the wrong way, you turn left or right, which is good. It is hope that Trinidad and Tobago can pick up from what Tobago is doing. And what they did was say, look, what worked with us with Emailgate, in the hope that we got people to shift to vote them out in 2015, even though it was all a lie. We have a problem with Gary Griffith. We believe that Gary Griffith has some type of a following of that, the majority of that third constituency, not PNM or UNC till are dead. And because of that, we have to destroy his character, his credibility, because that's one thing I said PNM is very good at. We as the PNM, we are incompetent, we are failures, but if we keep saying that they are corrupt and they are thieves, we will get people to vote for us. And that's what they're very good at. The firearm situation was simple, was typical of that. When it is a government realizes that somebody had 89% national support, that public trust and confidence in the police moved from 14 to 55%, when every single crime was reduced, the highest in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, they got concerned. So they figured, look, we can't just let him leave. We have to destroy his credibility. So they brought up the lies about the firearms. And after 2 years, not one witness, not one document, not one report, not one thing on a video, nothing at all. It was all a lie. But they lied so well and kept saying it. And the one thing, again, what PNM they do is they hire civilians, pay them big money, and then could probably tell them, I am paying you this money, so this is what you must put in the report. So they'll take the report and then read it out to discredit the person. They did it with the Barrington report that fell flat. They did it with the Stanley John report that fell flat. 2 years now, as I said, not one person has even been held or interviewed as it pertains to white-collar crime with firearms. So it was all a lie for 2 years. They then decided, okay, the same way we worked with Emailgate to lie in Parliament and hide, let us do it with the firearms. So they formed an audit committee and said they were going to bring it in Parliament. This is what came in. I then immediately said, no, if you want to lie, be a man and say it outside Parliament. Don't go in Parliament and lie and be a coward to lie about me that it means that I can't sue you. This is what I took them to court for. What is amazing is that the Trinidad and Tobago Express...
that during the period of the report being done and the investigations being done, that you were not contacted to do any interviews, to answer any questions from the committee that was put together. And now with any investigation, we know when investigations of this nature are taking place, that you actually give the person being accused the ability to answer a number of questions. So that also raises questions on the validity of the report. But what is interesting is a number of your former colleagues or a number of retired men in the service played a key role on the council that was conducting, the committee that was conducting that report. What does that say for the level of camaraderie and the trust that exists within the TTPS?
Well, again, and that's what this case was about. So if anyone who reads today's Trinidad and Tobago Express, you could change the Express to the Balizé newspaper, because the headline was totally misleading. They said the judge ruled against Griffith. Every single thing that we requested in the court, we won. We won every single one. So if I can forward it to you, the court order. The order in 150, starting in 159, it stated that nothing must be published to any party other than the Commissioner of Police. They wanted to send it to Parliament and to make it public. 2, it said the claimant must be given an opportunity in relation to any investigation. It was not done. 3, there should be no investigation. Should no investigation ensue, then the prohibition would be absolute, which means that the audit is virtually dead now. 4, in para 160, it said the Prime Minister acted in an irrational manner. This is the court saying that about Keith Rowley, and the AG doing a false release, and then Express, the PNM Express newspaper stating that the judge voted against Griffith. They misled the country. Look at it's here in 160. This court order can be given to anyone yesterday. The Prime Minister operated in an irrational manner. 5, there was a breach of the rules of natural justice and fairness in relation to the claimant. Yet the Attorney General sent a misleading release to say that there was no natural justice affected. It is here. So it seems that the Attorney General cannot read. We might need to draw photos for him in future. Para 6 in 161, an injunction is granted restraining them from putting anything in Parliament, which is all this is what I put. My main request was for it not to go to Parliament. The court has ruled it will not go to Parliament, yet the Express PNM newspaper has stated that the judge ruled against me. It also stated in 163, the court became alarmed that the executive exerted power to send persons in a team of ex-police officers at that who are no longer subject to the police service rules and regulation to investigate police records. This is a concern by the court. 8, those records are obviously related to the operations of the police service and ought not, in this court's view, to fall into the hands of the executive. So, and then you go on with the court voicing their concern of the Commissioner of Police requesting and giving approval to police records falling into the hands of the executive, having joined as parties. I mean, so all of this shows that every single thing that was done by the government in the audit, you don't hire civilians, force them into the police service, have them launch an investigation, let them give you a report, and then you go in Parliament like a coward to lie. That is why I said, your name man, Keith Rowley, speak outside Parliament of what you want to say. And to the persons in the audit committee, as was put in the court, you are civilians. What right you have to get involved? And what has happened now, let me tell you, Tobago, the firearm dealers and the firearm holders who have been affected by these civilians pretending that they are police, asking them for questioning them, they can now sue the state because of interference in private and confidential information between themselves and the police service. McDonald Jacob also will have questions to answer as to why he allowed it to happen. Erla Christopher would have questions to answer because she allowed the police service to be used as an Uber to transport police officers and these civilians to different parts of Trinidad and Tobago to get reports. On what ground you as Earl Christopher, as a commissioner of police, allowed these civilians to have access to confidential files, which is what the court voiced their concern about. So every single thing that I put and requested, we won. And I'm actually going to get legal costs for it as well. How could I get legal costs paid thanks to the taxpayers now paying me because of the flaws made by the state? So, I mean, it is very unfortunate it has reached to this point. But the reason I had to push this is because this country is reaching a state of democratic dictatorship where the government feels that they can now be involved in the manipulation and involvement of investigations.
Now, you have been partially vindicated by the court in the court granting you or ruling that this should not be given to any third party, not even to the parliament, and it should not be in the public domain. But with all of this unfolding, don't you think that it also kind of deteriorates the credibility and trust that the public has in the TTPS? And I would hate to think that that is something that you would want to happen, especially seeing that you are the former commissioner of police. I would believe that you would still want Trinbagonians to have a certain level of confidence in the TTPS.
And therein lies the problem. If you're a commissioner of police, you must understand your McDonald, Jacob, and Earl Christopher have questions that they should never allow this to happen. The court has stated.
Mr. Griffith, you seem to have a little bit of a technical difficulty there. We hope that you can rectify that and jump back on with us so that we could continue this very interesting conversation. I see that you're back. Yeah, we had a little bit of a...
So, McDonald, Jacob, and Earl Christopher have questions to answer by allowing civilians to have investigative authority. It means that they were pressured by the politicians. And that's where I stood firm. When politicians will tell me, we are giving you $45 million and this money must be used specifically to hire attorneys to arrest political opponents, I will say, wait a minute, something is wrong here. Because when I ask you for $100,000 to hire an engineer to monitor the investigation of AV drilling, you're sticking. So these are the things that the country needs an independent commissioner of police. McDonald Jacob should have told the Prime Minister, hey, you're out of place. You can't hire civilians to come into the police office and look at files of confidential nature pertaining to citizens who had a contractual obligation expecting the police to adhere to it. He did not adhere to that contractual obligation, and he allowed these civilians to enter. Earl Christopher has allowed this to continue and caused the police service to be a transport unit to be transporting these civilians all over Trinidad and Tobago demanding questions. Keith Rowley had no right to turn civilians into an investigative body, which is why the court has also stated that the audit, so when the misleading statement in the Express that the judge ruled against me, that is not true. What we said is that if you're doing an audit and you have any concerns, send it to the police. Don't go into parliament and hide like a coward. So I got exactly 100% what I wanted. So it is unfortunate what you said. McDonald, Jacob, and Earl Christopher should have stood firm and told the Prime Minister in a local parlance, listen, you're out of place. You can't hire civilians to come into the police service to investigate matters of the police. This is a police matter. And the court has ruled this. The court has voiced their concern that persons who are no longer police officers were there to investigate police records. How could you do that? And this is, however, are the persons that the 41 members of parliament voted for unanimously to say that she's the best person for the job. So they are the ones who have questions to answer by allowing this to happen, because it is hoped that Earl Christopher does not operate anymore like McDonald Jacob, because what he did was wrong. And he very well could go before the police complaint authority with these individuals reporting him for why it is you allow civilians to enter the police service to launch investigations as stated in the court ruling.
Ultimately are requesting that the entire report be squashed because of the type of practices that were used to get the information. You indicated the illegitimacy of having civilians being able to access quite confidential and sensitive information from the police service during the time of the investigation, and even being able to use, former police officers to do that work. How do you think this is really going to play out? Do you think they are actually going to squash this report? Because we heard the judge stating that they should internalize the report and decide how they're going to move forward on a policy level before publishing it. So that indicates that at some point this information may indeed end up in the public domain. So tell us, how do you predict this thing really playing out?
Yeah, great. So I was a Minister of National Security. I was part of a National Security Council. So the misleading information that we didn't want an audit to take place, that is nonsense. A National Security Council has the right to have an audit, but you can't have an audit team get into the police service to launch investigations. So you can have a committee, you stay outside of the police service, and if you have information that may allude to criminal activity, which is what the court says, your only avenue that you could do with this report is if you feel that there's a concern of somebody breaking the law, send it to the police, which is what the National Security Council could only do. The National Security Council has no operational authority. They're not even part of the Constitution. They are a subcommittee assigned from cabinet, so they don't have authority. What they have is the permission to spend big money, hire people who could be close to them, and then write what they want in a report. What the court has stated now is if there's any information you have to keep that to yourself, because that is you as a politician hiring civilians. That has nothing to do with parliament. That has nothing to do with the law. If it is you feel that there's a policy that needs to be changed, you change it in cabinet. If there's a law that needs to be amended, you go to parliament. But don't go and use parliament as a rum shop to go and speak to bad talk people as you did with Emailgate. This was a planned Emailgate Reloaded, and they failed. The court has blocked them and told them where to get off. So what is going to happen now? Their only option is which is what we also wanted. You have a concern and you want to accuse people of something, report it to the police. And if these 4 civilians who did not have the common sense to understand that if you are doing an audit, the first thing you must do is to speak to the person in charge of the organization that you're auditing, which shows their incompetence or their personal agenda. If these individuals now go to the police with an allegation of someone involved in criminal activity, and the police realize that it is null and void, these individuals can now be charged for wasting police time. In addition to the persons they accuse can now sue them for defamation by you making a false allegation of them in the police station. So I welcome these 4 jokers now. Go in the police station and report a crime was committed. If you don't have, and what I've heard in this report, it is littered with, it is alleged, we have heard, it has been brought to my attention, which is the typical PNM propaganda of lies. But if you go to parliament with the lies, you cannot be sued. They have played their hand and lost. They've been weighed, measured, and found wanting. And it has exposed the plot, and the court has stated that the Prime Minister was irrational in his behavior. They should not have hired civilians to go into a police station to investigate police. The Commissioner had no right to have done so, and that this matter cannot go to parliament. And my natural justice was breached. Every single thing that we requested was adhered to. Yet the Express PNM newspaper and the AG in his release have the audacity to mislead the country to believe that the other side may have won something.
And again, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure to sit with you, but unfortunately, we have to go because we have a number of other conversations that we have to have this morning. But before you go, let us know, do you feel vindicated by the decision that was made by the judge in this case?
Well, yeah, it's not just myself. This is to ensure that people that this government, which seems to be very vindictive, and they feel that anybody who is outside of the PNM is the enemy and we must arrest them or lock them up. What I have done is to show that our justice system is not politically manipulated. For the court to rule everything against the government, it shows that the government does not have control of the courts, which is thankfully the last bastion of hope we have, that and the office of the DPP. So we have to make sure that these independent institutions cannot be abused and controlled by the government, because if you do that, that is what is called dictatorship. So this was not about Gary Griffith. This was to put a plug and to tell Keith Rowley, back off. You're going too far now. Know your place. And he has played his hand. He has lost. And now, unfortunately, the taxpayers will have to pay my legal costs.
And do you have any words of advice for the office of the DPP during this time?
Yeah, the same way, sir, that I was pressured and I was told that in no uncertain term, if you don't toe the line and you operate to what we tell you to do, we are going to remove you. And I told him where to get off. It is hope that he stands firm, because he has a job to do and he must not in any way be pressured. Remember that this thing with the DPP started with them criticizing him after he made the ruling on the PIACO the decision. So, and then the Attorney General, who has proven to be the most incompetent AG this country has ever seen, had the audacity to be speaking about the performance of the DPP. That, and the AG means he does not know his role and function. The Office of the Attorney General does not have operational control over the Office of the DPP. The DPP does not report to the AG. The AG has administrative control as to providing equipment, staff, manpower, human resource, but not operational control. So the AG to speak about the performance of the DPP in local parlance is fast and out of place. He should look in the mirror to realize that his releases continue to show his incompetence as an Attorney General. They need to look in the mirror and back off from these independent institutions and stop pressuring them.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Mr. Griffith. Again, it's a pleasure to have you.